landlords need to stop thinking that all they need to provide is four walls. They need to actually monitor their employees. Now, if their margins are going to be a little thinner, I don't know. You check out most landlords and their margins are really healthy. Mm-hmm. It's not a real problem. You could throw a few people out there, and customer success or client relations shouldn't be something that's like, oh, they had a problem, let them talk to them, we'll figure out what's going on. You actually need to be someone that's in the room, and you have to put someone who understands the business as well. So I think there's huge challenges in how real estate was done, and the people who get out ahead of it and have the dollars to do it, the guts to do it, and the support of the boards and their investors to do it are the people that are going to survive moving forward.
Welcome again, everybody, to the Zelnik Exchange. My name is Corey Zelnik. I am your host, and today we're going to spend some time with a friend of mine. His name is Shlomo Chopp. We became friends on social media, and we are now friends in real life. This is probably our second or third meeting, but we communicate periodically, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit, and today we're going to get to know Shlomo a little bit more. Let me read Shlomo in. Shlomo Chopp is a distinguished commercial real estate executive with over 20 years of experience specializing in distressed real estate. He currently serves as managing partner of Case Equity, a CRE investment and advisory firm specializing in distressed debt, restructuring, CMBS workouts, value-add acquisitions, and navigating complex loan property situations for sophisticated investors like family offices and institutions with over $500 million in assets under management and decades of expertise in turning complexity into value. He began his career in 2003 at a pioneering proptech firm, rapidly excelling in deal-making and acquisitions while harnessing emerging technologies to spot undervalued opportunities. These early days provided him with a strategic mindset and a robust network that would later prove invaluable in navigating complex markets and transforming distressed assets into success stories. In the wake of the great financial crisis, Chopp's expertise shone through when he founded Case Property Services in 2010. Focused on restructuring, unwinding, and turning around distressed debt, CPS mastered the challenges of structured finance loans. His innovative approach and deep understanding of commercial mortgage-backed securities consistently secured recoveries well beyond initial forecasts. Throughout his career, Chopp has managed and advised over $4 billion in commercial real estate assets, driving strategic acquisitions and leveraging his expertise across every level of the capital stack, from bonds and loans to properties and other derivative interests. His commitment to innovation is exemplified by his 4 granted U.S. patents, with additional patents pending, which underscore his pioneering integration of e-commerce with retail environments. This groundbreaking work has earned him industry accolades, including being named a top retail expert by Rethink Retail for 4 consecutive years. Beyond his corporate achievements, he generously dedicates time pro bono to assist borrowers with smaller loans who lack the necessary expertise to navigate complex transactions independently. Residing with his family in Hudson Valley in New York, Chopp remains deeply engaged in his local community, widely recognized as a thought leader whose insights are sought by top-tier publications, institutions, and investors. Shlomo Chopp, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. I don't know, that introduction, we got to do something about that. Well, it should come with like a Tiffany big silver thing to come up and take the award every time.
I know, but it's a great resume. It's a great bio. We got to read you.
Yeah, that's fine. Listen, I'm happy to hear it.
So you're clearly we talk about being in a data-driven world. Mm-hmm. Everything that speaks in that bio talks about data. So tell me how it started. Tell me about where it's going. What you think. I really, again, we know each other. We met via social media, but I don't know about the business so much. So tell me about it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, some guys are born with a lot of connections. Okay. Some guys are born with a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I was born with neither, and so I had to work very hard. And the thing is, in life, you have to find your niche. You have to find how you're different than the next guy. You have to find an area you could excel where it's not tried and true. Like you could go on and just take it like head first, just go right up against everybody who has a tried and true approach, and you're going to do your approach and everything. But then you get to you can't beat them, join them. You struggle against it. And I decided, I shouldn't have the time and patience being a young guy in the business to try to reinvent what everyone else does. Mm-hmm. Let me find a niche for myself. Let me try to be creative around that. So My dad's a computer programmer, retired now, but a computer programmer, and I had opportunity to go and work for a proptech firm, which proptech wasn't even a word then, I don't think.
Right.
Because the VCs weren't in it at that point.
Sure.
And so worked there, sold to various mortgage brokers, Ackman Ziff, some other smaller guys. We ultimately did a deal with Marks and Millichap Capital. So long story short, like got into that side of the business, and then after a while, I used to have to fight to get people to buy a piece of software. It was a couple of $1,000s. I'm like, these guys who go to the bar at night or go to like a club and spend that amount like without blinking an eye, and I have to sit there and fight. And no one liked me in front on the purchasing side because they all knew they needed technology. But every broker had their database in their head or on it, right? They didn't want to share it with the company.
Sure.
The secretary is like another process. I got to go here, got to put the status here. It was just like I was like, you know what? This is just not something that's getting me where I need to go. But I learned a lot about commercial real estate. So therefore, let me go ahead and let me try to do this on my own, and let me get into the investment wheeling and dealing thing.
All right, and with the prop tech part, I get. Were you also a natural numbers guy, like coming out of school or anything like that?
Okay, here's something I've never said out loud to people. I almost failed my Math 3 Regent. I had a teacher that had it for me. But like I said, like the refs can rig a game, but you got to be really close to be able to have it affect you, right? So I wasn't that great at the traditional math, but numbers from a creative way, from visualizing the numbers and visualizing as pieces, like 4 times 10 in my mind goes 10 plus 10 is 20, 20 and 20 is 40. It's not like 4 times 10 multiplication table, there you got 40, right? So it's a different way of looking at stuff. So I was never really a numbers guy until it got to putting it in a spreadsheet and attaching it to a business plan. Then all of a sudden it started working. And that's really, if there's a differentiation I have to compared to the other people in the business that are on the financial side, I don't think of it as just numbers. I think of it as the property from operations perspective, right? Not about ratios, but about, how does that impact the collection of rent? How does it impact operations? How will these things work, and what are my margins going to be? I mean, how close are my margins, et cetera? And that's when I deal with restructuring things. That's how we get to it. But rewinding back, so I got into the wheeling and dealing of things until today. I walk by properties that I got screwed on commission on, and, because I wasn't a broker, and I was just like, doing deals type of thing. Like, I knew a guy who knew a guy, and I got him a deal. And they're like, I can't really pay you today, but I'll pay you tomorrow. No,
so
I'm traveling.
You were just helping people with numbers and thoughts, and you weren't.
No, I was trying to broker deals. I was trying to get involved in buying deals and getting people to buy deals and staying in as part of it and get bought out as part of the equation. The consulting fees. I was just like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was wheeling and dealing, and I was, and after a while. Did pretty well. I'd say I probably earned less money than I got screwed on, right? That's unfortunately, even guys that have a brokerage license, realize that in this business, unfortunately. There's a lot of really quality individuals out there. And then the great financial crisis came. And at that point, the problem was because I taught myself the business from scratch, right? I didn't teach myself. I had a lot of help, but I did teach myself. I was accountable to myself. At a young age, I didn't have what to live on, and I went off on my own. I didn't go to work for a brokerage. It was like I would never advise someone to do what it is that I did. I just had tenacity and just didn't give up and pushed hard and hard. So
if you don't mind, where were you living at this time? You married?
I was married. Yeah. So I started working in 2003. I got married in 2003. So it was about that time. Before I was married, I was selling some flooring, some stuff, but it was just But so at that point, it's like, okay, I'm going to make it big. And if Bill Gates could be the richest guy in the world, why can't I get to be eventually the richest guy? It's like it was the challenge of like everyone else that's out there is doing it that's not cerebral about it. If I'm cerebral about it, maybe I could do it. And something that's a lesson I learned over time, which is like you could be the smartest guy in the world, they got to be able to make money too. And that's sort of, it took a while to get to that point. But but ultimately, I was able to teach myself the business. So when things got really frothy in 2008, it didn't make sense to me. Like condos became a really big hit in 2005 to 2008, right? And I started in 2003. About 2004 and a half is when I sort of went in to start doing my own thing.
And when you say you taught yourself the business, what business were you
Real
teaching?
estate.
Just real estate, period?
I'm selling software to Ackman Ziff. I sit down with,
Okay.
then Jordan Ray was the guy that just came in,
Right.
then he was working with him. But like, I'm learning from them, like how they need to enter a deal in, well, not necessarily Ackman Ziff per se,
Right.
but other people, like what a setup looks like, right? How banks lend, what the underwriting is, right?
Sure.
So I'm seeing all those pieces. I'm seeing the underwriting, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And it was really fascinating to me that if I wanted to start tomorrow a business selling widgets, there's so much that needs to be done after slave until I could finally become wealthy. In commercial real estate, you show up, you buy a building, you get lucky. Even if you make a bad investment, you get lucky. You're rich, right? And every young guy wants comfort and wants to be able to not have to worry like his parents did, right? Well, turns out, you could have your plans, but your plans work out, like
Yes.
it ain't as easy as it looks, right?
Someone said the best laid plans of mice and men, right?
Yeah.
So,
There you go. There's a Yiddish saying, man plans and God laughs.
There you go.
Right? There you
Yep.
go. So
Can we throw in one more? I got to throw in one
Go,
more.
yeah.
Mike Tyson's. Everybody's got a plan until
Yeah,
they get punched in the face.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm teaching myself. Now, I say teaching myself to you. A lot of people that were good to me, right? And that's the thing throughout my career. I've been really, I've gravitated to good people, right? Good people that are bad, even if I view them as someone who can help me in a certain way. There's too much unknowns, if you will, as to when I'm going to get screwed by that guy. I don't want to have anything to do with him.
Okay.
Like I literally just try to stay with people like Ken Ashley, guys like you, guys who you're friendly with. That I don't want to have anything to do with people that bad. I learned there's a saying that I don't know if I came up with it, but I'm sure someone came up with it way before me. Bad people, bad things. Good people, good things. Like that's been proven true so many times. Every time you sort of test that theory, it's like, no, it's a fact, right? So I'm learning the business, and the market gets overheated in 2005, 2008, and I'm sitting on the sideline, and I'm always very cognizant of Teddy Roosevelt's poem, The Man in the Arena, right? Because, big talker, you're on the sidelines telling people that they shouldn't be investing, right? But to a certain extent, I'm like, who's going to pay $700 a foot for a condo unit in New York City? It's a lot of money. How many people can actually afford that? Right. $700 a foot? Today you buy land for $700 a foot, right? But the point ultimately is that it didn't make sense to me. And I therefore dug. If it doesn't make sense to me, there's got to be something that other people know that I don't. It turns out that what I didn't know is that economics is really supply and demand, but there's also something called inflation. There's, the market grows, and also the value of money goes down as well. So therefore the price goes up. So it's not really that the price is going up as much, etc. Right? But then even cap rates, right? I remember was looking at shopping centers in the Midwest with a shopping center owner, and he'd buy these properties that had a grocery anchored center, and the grocer was doing well, but didn't have a lot of time left on the lease, and he used to buy it for the risk. And so long as it wasn't a Walmart supercenter open in the area, he'd say, okay, it's worth buying, and he'd make a lot of money on that. And we'd buy it at 9 caps, at 10 caps, at 11 caps, right? And all of a sudden, I'm seeing 6 caps. I mean, who buys for a 6 cap, right? And I never really made that big jump pre-GFC into investing.
Understood. So, but were you at this point? You're looking at these things, you're speaking to people, you're hearing what they're buying and selling and what have you, and you're seeing something different, or you're feeling something different, or are you not battling, but are you trying to get in with certain people to say, hey, look at it this way? To show your approach?
I didn't have the guts or the ability or the confidence to be able to say, look at it this way, until I understood why you should look at it that way. And I didn't, and I never was able to understand it pre-GFC. I never and even when I broker deals, so to speak, it'd be from this guy to that guy would buy it, great, okay. I didn't understand what was going on. And not because I knew less than other people's, because I needed more information to make that decision, right? And that was something that hindered me back then, but it's something that acts as a superpower today to be able to dig in and break down on stuff. So, then it's sometimes they say oh, you're not going to buy that deal. You know too much, right? Like that saying, like, yeah, I'm the man who knows too much often.
Right.
And it's why sometimes I don't chase deals. I'm in a climate like we've had in the past 40 years where people have just been lucky, just buy and see where it goes type of thing. I didn't put myself in a position, as Michael Jordan says, you miss every shot you didn't take, or whatever, something like that, right?
Yep.
So that was the pre-GFC, and then Washington Mutual went under, and I remember sitting in a place. It was just sitting down, relaxing somewhere, and seeing the what's it called? I remember what it was. I was driving, had to stop for gas. It was at a gas station somewhere in Jersey, and I was on a call, and I didn't want to continue, so I went into the gas station. They had like a cigar bar in there, and I sat down at the cigar bar, just sitting.
Gas station?
Yeah, somewhere in Jersey, like on one of the like highway, whatever it is, right? Right, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm on the phone. I'm not smoking a cigar. Like I was never like that stuff doesn't appeal to me too much. So and on TV, and I see the Washington Mutual goes under, right? And that's about the same time. I don't know what came first. About the same time, Lehman Brothers went under. All that stuff was happening in real time, and I didn't understand the significance of it. I did not understand the moving parts. I had no clue what was happening. All I knew was that there's problems and things happening. I think this happened in 2008, 2009, whatever it was, right? And about that time, like, people aren't buying anymore. And I can't wheel and deal now. Like, yeah, I mean, just like, how do you make a living? What do you do? So I was talking to an attorney of mine, Amir Cohen-Bloom, and he goes, and he was previously, he was at Strook, and then he went in-house at Citibank and the CMBS group, and he said, Shlomo, you should look at this CMBS stuff, right? Now, in the days of the RTC, in the days of the savings and loan crisis, people bought things for nothing,
right? And
then they made a lot of money, and everyone was like, "Oh, we're going to buy for nothing. We're going to buy for nothing." But there's an adage. Walter Deemer, I think, is the guy's name. Who's a great stock trader, and he wrote this book, and it's full of sayings like the title of the book, which is, "When it comes time to buy, you won't want to."
Okay.
Right? But I didn't know that then. But the point is, like, everyone wanted to buy then because everyone wanted to buy at a discount. The problem is that lenders don't make the same mistake twice. They make similar mistakes twice.
They do.
But it's not handled the same way. So the way the days of the RTC was solved is that because everyone wanted to buy everything at a tremendous discount, and the government didn't want to take the hits that they were taking, so they did was they took over these banks, then they packaged it into securities that investors that otherwise wouldn't buy a mortgage because they don't want to collect a mortgage from somebody could just buy these securities behind it. And that added liquidity into the market, supply of money, raised the demand, right? Supply and demand, and so this new time comes around, and all of a sudden you don't have a bank that's got a balance sheet and has to wonder how they're recovering money to give back to the depositors, but rather you have these CMBS trusts, these closed-ended funds, if you will, that basically they could have no money, and it doesn't matter because the money's already invested. They just want to distribute money, right? There's no systemic risk from them directly. Turns out that there's a lot of people that have investments in it that ultimately have to give it back, but that's a whole different.
It finds its way.
It finds its way back,
right.
And even till today, it's a dirty little secret. But all these guys on Wall Street playing with your money and everything, it's the fireman's money, right? So while we have to take money from a fireman to invest in a mutual fund, they have to give them disclosures till the cows come home. But the one thing they don't really disclose is what happens to the money once it leaves the mutual fund, right? Yeah, we're investing in emerging companies. Okay, and those emerging companies are, well, we can make a decision on an ongoing basis based on a set of criteria. What's a set of criteria? At this point, the fireman's like, let's put out a fire last and I'm going to sleep. I don't want to be busy with this, but you just took his money, and essentially it's in some cases, based on investments, it's sanctioned stealing. I'm not saying the mutual funds, but you're putting them into highly risky things, and you're relying on a chain of people that will do the right thing by the ultimate end investor, but
the chain becomes so long,
and it's protected, and it's protected, and it's like, and you can't do anything about it. But point is, at that point, I'm like, okay, there's got to be opportunity here. So the opportunity, and I'll pause here for a second, but just the opportunity became the borrowers went and took loans that they didn't understand, and not only didn't understand the loans they took when they took it, but they also were using methods of solving distressed loans that were tried and true in a previous era for different types of loans.
Okay.
So the miscommunication was a real problem.
And some of that does tie back into who's selling these things, right? The seller of these, right? They're selling one group is selling an idea to another group. Someone's buying it. They're fast talking them and what have you, right? So your head spins like, maybe not so much your fireman example, but
Yes, I mean, if I'm a borrower and my attorney says, yeah, it looks good, then my attorney has no clue what the implications are of that clause that he just signed. That seems like reasonable. If the lender wants it, that's great, but you have no clue that the practices that the bookkeeper is doing in the office right now literally makes this non-recourse loan a fully recourse personally guaranteed loan. That's a huge problem.
But it's low interest and you'll be good and you'll be fine.
Because no one pays attention to anything except the rate, the proceeds, and the term. And oh, can you give me another 2 bips? Yes, if we change that word from or to and, we'll give you another $100,000 in proceeds. You know what? You just sold your property for $100,000 because you're going to lose it based on that or change to an and, right?
Interesting. So I'm gonna jump in on two things, right? Based on a lot of what you said there, and I love hearing this stuff because I don't hear it very often. My day to day is really leasing, but I love hearing this stuff, and I want to touch on it. We talked about opportunities. You talked about the great financial crisis and what have you, and it brings to mind a Sam Zell, right? One of the top 5 legends of our industry across the board. And he talked about being a grave dancer.
Yes.
Right? And what does that mean? That means he's buying when everybody's selling and taking advantage of all those things. And he became a rock star for it. And in doing some homework on you, it led me to an article that you wrote, and it's called New Graves to Dance On. And I have two paragraphs that I pulled from, and then I want you to talk about it in depth that I thought were interesting.
Sure.
You said, for decades, commercial real estate has comforted itself with the same bedtime story. We own hard assets, bricks, steel, dirt, things that don't disappear when markets get volatile. And for a long time, that story worked well enough to make a lot of people rich. But here's the inconvenient truth. Commercial real estate is only as durable as the business models that occupy it. And those business models are changing faster than our leases expire and far faster than our debt amortizes. This isn't a cyclical observation. It's structural. And for those underwriting yesterday's stability and tomorrow's economy, it's creating a new generation of graves, some already filled, others freshly dug. Tell me about this.
So This dovetails right into your business, just so you know. We'll get to on the F&B side, and we'll get to that. But let's talk about Sam Zell. Sam Zell was he was a visionary, he was an innovator, and he had guts and cojones, if you will. He took risks that other people wouldn't. And so Sam was a big proponent of the REIT structure, which is essentially taking a real estate company and selling shares to individuals, etc. He was very behind that. He brought several REITs public, right? But Sam's thesis around the grave dancer was that you could dance on someone else's grave if you understand that when lots of money comes into the market and the wrong people have it, they make bad investments or they make investments at a higher basis than they should, and then they can't maintain it, which brings those assets back to market. And because banks are not equipped to be able to handle the turnaround, it puts you, the operator or the expert operator, this is what people don't get, the expert operator, not the guy who can structure deals, to be able to go and turn it around and make it profitable and make money off it. That was his thing. So his thing was, every few years, they put out too much money, people buy it at crazy prices, and you could just go in and pick it up. You just got to wait for your time, right? That's great. The difference between where Sam looked at things, and even to his death, he was a very big believer in office coming back. He was actually, he told me personally, he was not a believer in retail at all. I had a big argument with him. I pitched him on something. And I said, listen, there's a difference between the top retail assets and the assets that are not really good assets. And I think the top retail assets will do well. And he didn't disagree, but he felt from an investment perspective at that time, there was supply and demand imbalance, right? And that was one of the thrills of my life to be able to actually pitch him.
I'm sure.
And he was very gracious and just great. So that was that. And the way I got to him, just like I cold emailed him.
Okay.
Like that's it. Okay, so that was Sam Zell's thesis. Okay. My thesis is that while we look at bricks and mortar as being the place where people need to be, we're sitting right now in bricks and mortar, right? The question then becomes, do people have to be in those bricks and mortar? And so long as we have an economy as we've previously had, absolutely. But do people have to work from the office every day? I believe ultimately you don't advance in your career if you don't work from the office.
Agreed.
But on the flip side, I also believe that you could take a day a week outside the office. You could take a couple days outside a week out of the office. Or you could travel. You could literally not come into the office for a month. It will not be optimal, but you could figure it out. What that means, if the usage rate is down, then obviously the rate of people, of space you need is going to be down, right?
Sure.
And what that also means is the ultimate bifurcation with the better assets, better not better assets. So you see that also, right? And therefore, the brick and mortar argument falls apart. Now let's go, for example, to retail, because I mentioned, I teased that we'll talk about your business. So, like, e-commerce has been a issue in the market, and the reason e-commerce has been an issue has been twofold. I think the first thing is that there's been a lot of money thrown at it. So therefore, people have been, and also there's demand, top line demand growth. E-commerce is not a profitable business at all, but it feeds other businesses. And there's ways to make money doing it, but because there's so much demand, it keeps on surviving and moving forward. There's better ways to deal with it, but nonetheless, it's an issue. So as e-commerce caused the death of companies that needed to have a bottom line profit, but to begin with were flawed and didn't have much of a margin and killed them off,
right,
we had vacancy across the entire market that needed to be filled. Because we've gone to life has become a lot about experiences, I think is really right. Much. And therefore, one of the major experiences that I think we've seen has been food and beverage. And I think a lot of shopping centers have gone from having soft goods and even hard goods in some situations, and gone to F&B, food and beverage, restaurants, and so on and so forth. Right. And what's really unnerving to me about it, is the tried and true adage that in a downturn, the first thing that goes is discretionary spending, including eating out. And as we're going through this super growth of food, eating out, and all that, and even a Taco Bell, it's more expensive than making your own food at home.
Yes, always.
Right?
Always.
Right? So it's like even if you pay, $3 or $4 for something, you could have done that for much less at home.
Of course.
Right? So this thing where, we food and beverage all around, I think ultimately it doesn't survive, right? And I think ultimately these changes that are happening are causing issues fundamentally, structurally, right? And that's one area where I think there's a huge risk.
Yeah, but I would jump in and say,
yes,
I don't think food and beverage doesn't survive. I think it'll be, like a lot of things, will be survival of the fittest.
Oh, no. I don't mean we'll stop eating. No,
yeah, right.
No.
Of course, people always have to eat.
I just mean shopping centers that have said, we're going to fill up all space, food and beverage. I can't begin to tell you how many shopping centers I've seen to buy, and you have a restaurant that's doing really bad sales.
Yeah.
And they exited the market. Or they're like,
but I think that a lot of what's happening, too, is that a lot of that restaurant in the shopping center or in the mall, whatever you want, is a little, there's a sort of oldness to it and even a tiredness to it. And so I think that when you look at, and I'm sure you've looked at, if you look at Tanger,
yes,
right? Tanger, used to be Tanger outlets because they only ran outlets. So now they're buying some regular shopping centers. So now they're just called Tanger, and that's fine. And their CEO, Steve Yalof, is doing a great job in bringing in the experiential side, which is the F&B, to those centers. Now, he's probably not having, steakhouses built in there, but he's having more grab and go, more yogurt, more dessert type of things, because that's the experiential part of being in a shopping center. If you go to the other extreme, if you look at Hermes, who just built a new flagship on Madison Avenue, what do they have? What did they add? One of the things they added was a cafe. Yeah. Keep you in there. Tiffany redesigned a cafe within Tiffany. But
what happens when people think that is the end all? I think anyone who's doing it will tell you this is what we need today, but we have to keep innovating to keep people coming in, right?
Absolutely.
So the point is, it's not so. And then once you keep innovating, if you then look at the individual initiatives that you've had alone, not how it affected the larger store, you say, was I even able to amortize my cost? The answer typically is going to be no. But did it bring my total business to a better level? Yes. Right. Did it wipe out other people who didn't do it? Yes. So the point is, the F&B in shopping centers is what you need today, and it could survive, cannot survive like this specific restaurant you put in there. Right. But it's about keeping your property relevant, because we all know the biggest death of retail, we hear it all the time, oh, the main drag moved there, right? And how did the main drag move? Because you didn't innovate your property here, and somebody built a new property there, and the city's like, oh, we got to help them, and they made a new interchange there, and pretty soon you got a problem, right? Yes. The point is you need constant innovation. The argument is that when you think that we're here, you've basically dug your own grave. Here's a classic example. I mean, AI, right? It's changing day by day. But I wrote about it in the article. It's changing every day. The chips are changing day by day. I mean, there was some recent news that Google came out with some chip that has way more capacity, or Musk came out with a chip. All these things, right? So why are we building data centers today the same way we built it 6 months ago? We probably would want to innovate at something that finished 6 months ago, something new. But here's the problem. You can't change data centers every 6 months like you change a website. Right? So that's the challenge. So the question then becomes, are traditional leases the right way to go? Like, that's the question. I don't have a better solution, but I do know if they said, Shlomo, you're right, let's fold it all up, I know the market collapses, because how many pensioners lose everything they have if you just say, oh, we can't invest this way. And then if you decide to liquidate those assets, where do you put the money instead? Software company? No, that doesn't work. AI? No one's making money. Oh, you want to be the picks and shovels of AI? Like, okay, how do you do that? It's invest in something. Like, there's so many challenges and issues in the market. So the point really is really more of a thought process. It's not like, oh, here's how you're going to make money. It's about, like, we got to be a little smarter into what we view is going to be a long-term good investment.
I agree with you. I think it sets up for some smart thinkers, both on, and I'll stick in the retail category for the moment, on the retail side as well as the developer/landlord side. You know, because you draw up a lease, right? You draw up a 10-year lease, and you go beyond the business terms. You know, you work through these leases, and the reality is, the perfect lease never gets looked at. Right? If you just do what you're supposed to do on both sides, you never look at it. Every single lease, and I tell this to my guys all the time, is always written for the what if, right? And so it's very hard to imagine what the what if, even on the way like technology is changing, how you can keep up with all of that. And I don't know how you write a lease with a use clause on the, well, what if this happens in the world and things like that. Very creative. So I think that on a go-forward basis, to your point, you're going to need some creative thinkers to make these things have the lasting value. Right? As opposed to everything being, we wrote this lease in 2026, but here we are in 2034. Now what?
I think Prologis is a good example of a company that is a real estate investment trust, I believe, but they don't forget about the tenants from the time they sign it to the time they come up again, right? These are your customers, right? I give you a classic. This will probably hit home for you. How many landlords, if they only paid attention to the tenant during the lease, would not have the risk of losing them when the lease is up? Of course. It's like, pay attention. But the reality is, in commercial real estate, like, the guy that ultimately signs a lease, he comes in, not as much as he probably should, leaves it to people who don't have agency maybe, and then just he's okay cashing out and doing what he needs to do, and then when preferably hits the fan, it's like, oh my gosh, what do we do? You know what? Like, you can't build Rome in a day. You should have had the infrastructure built. I go back. There was at a retail conference that there was the guy who I forget the name of the company that bought up all these brands. He was on I forgot the name.
Authentic Brands?
Authentic Brands.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the CEO was on a panel together with David Simon, who just passed.
Yep.
And, he said, it's David Simon said it's the brand's job to advertise themselves to get the foot traffic. Okay. And he said, well, it's really your job to make sure that we get the traffic in there. And both of them were wrong. Right? So I think really, like, if we're talking about a model, forget about the fact signing leases, not signing leases, all that, because that just blows up the entire thing. One simple thing that could be done is that landlords need to stop thinking that all they need to provide is four walls. They need to actually monitor their employees. Now, if their margins will be a little thinner, I don't know. You check out most landlords and their margins are really healthy. It's not a real problem. You could throw a few people out there, and customer success or client relations shouldn't be something that's like, oh, they had a problem, let them talk to them, we'll figure out what's going on. You actually need to be someone that's in the room, and you have to put someone who understands the business as well. So I think there's huge challenges in how real estate was done, and the people who get out ahead of it and have the dollars to do it, the guts to do it, and the support of the boards and their investors to do it are the people that are going to survive moving forward.
I agree. Usually, of that little list you have just put out there, it usually starts with the dollars. It usually starts with the dollars because it may be the investment.
Well, the board is the dollars and the investors are the dollars, and there you go, dollars, right? You need buy-in.
Right, and it may start with hiring the right person who becomes, for lack of a better term, the liaison in our organization. And it also depends on how many properties you have, how many tenants you have. Can this even physically be done? And you have to set up a system and things like that. So
you need a Secretary of State, not just the Secretary of Defense, right?
No, that's a fair point. You do need that, but to get those people, it costs you money.
100%.
Right. So
they're not the real good guys. Are not going to work for free.
No, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
And a lot of the workouts that I see on a day-to-day basis when we work with borrowers, we see guys that, not my borrowers. My borrowers are all great, but there are other borrowers that we don't take. Whatever, they'll cash the heck out of a building. They'll come to the lender and say we can't refinance, and there'll be who knows how many millions of dollars in capital that's past due. And it's not just their fault; it's the lenders enabling it, because when they go and give the loan, they look away from the fact that there's going to be these systems that are going downhill.
Sure.
And they basically do like a property condition assessment that it says, oh, just do 25 cents a foot and have a good day. But the guy that came in to make that assessment, he's not even empowered to move ceiling tiles.
Right.
So it's like, what are you thinking here, right?
Right. And I apologize. I imagine most of the time those guys making that decision are just looking at what's written on a piece of paper.
100%. Get it out the door. Sell it. Get it out the door. That doesn't. Everybody is just basically passing the risk on to somebody else. But you know who gets screwed at the end of the day? It's the small LP investors. It's the small guys that gave the money to a pension fund that funded this private debt fund or funded CMBS or invest in the bank, whatever it is. Those are the guys getting hurt. And the problem is no one in that cycle. I would argue and say there are very few people in this industry, as opposed to the way I said, this is not me patting my back, this is me saying about the problem out there, that know what I know as it relates to the challenge. Meaning, no one understands the problem, very few people understand the problem that happened at the time the loan was made, the problem that happened at the time the loan was sold, the problem that happened at the time the loan was taken, the problem that's happening the entire time the loan looks healthy and the guy is operating and managing it. People don't see that, and there's so many things that need to be solved. But, I mean, listen, for a while I was like, okay, let me try to help. Let me talk to people. No one wants to hear. No one wants to solve it.
So who are you taking your services to? Who is your...
I represent borrowers.
Right.
I'm to the lenders, I'm on the dark side, and to the borrowers, okay. I'm helping them, right? But the reality is, like, I'm not trying to find a way to screw the lender. I'm trying to find a way to have the lender comprehend and understand the true issue at hand, and then to have my borrower be able to give the lender a proposal that's better than what the lender otherwise could get, and for the lender to understand that it's better than what the lender otherwise can get in the open market, that this is the right guy to solve the problem. The fact that we're in a problem, that's a systemic issue, right? That's across the board. It's an issue, right? But so that's really what we need to do. I think we need to moving forward is be better on how we issue loans, but no one cares until institutions fail again.
Right.
I don't think people will care. I really don't think. And when it does, they'll chalk it up to like, oh, no more cash outs, no more IO, and a better amortization. Honestly, when you lend money to a company that's on the stock exchange, you typically go for a 2x coverage. When you lend money to a real estate company, you mess the thing up until you're 1.15 coverage because you think it's going to go up from there, but you'll hold back 10% of the loan, saying that, we'll hold back this money to incentivize him to get it to that point, but what if he doesn't? Then the whole thing falls apart. So there's all these challenges, and we could all think about solving it, but who knows?
Nah, well, that's what you're here for.
Well, I'm not solving it, but the people don't want to solve it.
You'll solve the problems. Shlomo, I appreciate your time. This is great. Great lessons in this, and there are great nuggets.
Thank you.
And we're going to tear them up, and we're going to share them to the world, and we're going to hopefully bring you some business.
I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure to have you. I'm glad we got to spend some time, and I look forward to doing it again down the road.
Thank you so much for having me.